Hi, it's Ariel. It's hard to believe, but April is almost over already. It is actually freezing here in Ohio, so it's really hard to believe, but May is almost here. So we're going to talk about my May TBR today. The first thing I want to mention is that I did get to most of the books on my April TBR, but the one that I didn't get to is Brissinger, which is the third book in the Aragon series. So I am still hoping to get to that sometime soon, so I'm just going to move it on to my May TBR. And then for the other reread that I'm working on, I'm currently reading The Pendragon book that I was planning to read, the reality book, and the next one is Blackwater. Blackwater is set on Elon, which is sort of a jungly planet. I don't really have that much more to say about it, but I'm excited to continue the series, and hopefully read that one next month. And then actually one other book that I have on my April TBR is The Fifth Season. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm hoping that once I finish Pendragon, I'll be able to pick that one up right away and then finish it early May. And then maybe I'll also be able to pick up the sequel and continue that series in May. So the fifth season takes place on a planet that experiences catastrophic climate change on a pretty regular basis, which is happening right at the beginning of the book. And then also our main character comes home one day and finds that her husband has murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. And so it follows her as she tries to get her daughter back. And then apparently there's also one other thing going on, and that's that there is the fall of an empire happening right at the beginning of the book as well. So it sounds very exciting, and I'm really excited to pick it up. And next, I'm still working on the Chronicles of Narnia. I've gotten through The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. So next up, I have The Silver Chair and The Last Unicorn. They're pretty short. I've been listening to them as audiobooks, and so they're really easy to get through. And I hope I'll be able to finish those right at the beginning of May. Again, I don't really have very much to say about them since they're later books in a series, but I'm looking forward to wrapping the series up and maybe moving on to something else. Then actually in April, I also started reading A Constellation of Vital Phenomena by Anthony Mara. I picked this up as a audiobook from the library when I was reading to get the next Chronicles of Narnia book in from the library, and I am only about a quarter of the way through it so far. This book takes place in Chechnya right after the fall of the USSR, and it's going through a civil war. Right at the beginning of the book, Ahmed witnesses his neighbor being taken away by the secret police or something. And he finds his daughter, his neighbor's daughter, Hava, has been left behind in the woods. She was hiding in the woods. And so he takes Hava down into the city and tries to find somebody to take care of her for a little while. He winds up in a hospital where Sonia is pretty much the only doctor left, and so she's in charge and just trying to do as much as she can in this like partially abandoned hospital. And it turns out that Ahmed has actually had some medical training, although he was never very good at it. And so he says that he will help out in the hospital in exchange for Sonia looking after Hava until I can figure out what's going on with her father. Even though this takes place like in the early 2000s, sort of 1990s, early 2000s, it's a period of history that I don't really know all that much about. And so I'm finding it really interesting to see, from the local perspective what's going on. It is a pretty sad sight. There's a lot of death, especially because most of the story is taking place in a hospital. But so far it's just been the story about how these three people are trying to survive this really unstable time in Chechnya. So once I finish that, I also have a couple of other audiobooks from the library. I'm going to be actually moving soon and driving from Ohio to Oregon, so I'm going to have about 36 hours of drive time in which to listen to audiobooks. And so the next book that I picked up is a nonfiction called In Defense of Food by Michael Paulin. This is kind of a follow-up to his last book, which was The Omnivore's Dilemma. He kind of talks about plant-based eating, but also like not feeling too guilty about eating. Like, it's kind of about having a healthy relationship with food, which is a topic that I'm interested in. So this has been on my list for a long time, and I'm just finally picking it up. Then the next audiobook that I picked up is A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. The story starts off in Tokyo following 16-year-old Nao, and she is being bullied in school and has decided to commit suicide. She thinks that's her only way out. But before she does that, she decides to make a documentary about her great-grandmother, who was a Buddhist nun. And then there's also a dual perspective. We follow Ruth, who lives in the US, and she finds something that has been washed up on shore there from Japan. She thinks maybe it came from the 2011 tsunami. And this leads her sort of on an adventure that connects her with Nao, and I know they work together, and it's sort of speculative fiction. I've heard really good things about this book, so I'm excited to read it. And then the next audiobook that I got is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I haven't read anything by Holly Black since I was in high school, but I did really enjoy the Tithe series, and so I'm excited to pick up this new series. I know it's very fae heavy. The main character Jude was a kid when her parents were killed, and she and her siblings are taken to the fairy court and are brought up there, and that's where she meets the prince. And I guess they start off as enemies. It's kind of an enemies to lovers story if I am remembering that correctly, but yeah, I think it'll just be a fun, fluffy YA fairy story. Then the last book on my May TBR is Waiting at Two Rows by Constellation. I recently just picked up both the first and the second volumes, and I've been wanting to pick them up for a while, but shipping from Japan is really expensive. So these are Japanese novels, and in the first book, at age 22, we follow Kota, our main character, who has been having trouble getting a job after college, and he's decided to become a ronin, which it means he's just gonna sort of do like part-time work for a year and try to get a corporate job at the next cycle. And it's at this time that he's invited actually to work at a host club in Tokyo. The story really focuses on all the different people that he meets at the host club, and it sounds like there's a lot of very eccentric people. And then in the second volume, he's 10 years later, he has successfully gotten a job at a video game company, but he randomly runs into some of the people that he knew from when he was working at Two Rows, the host club, and the story picks up again from there. So if you're not familiar with Shige, he's actually a member of a Japanese idol group called News, who are mostly defunct at this point, but he started writing back in 2012 and published his first book, Pink and Gray. These are all his books here. I really enjoy his writing. He writes a lot of contemporary fiction based in Tokyo, and specifically in Shibuya, which is kind of like the hip center of Tokyo. And so far I found them really interesting, so I'm looking forward to picking up the next installation. So that's everything that I hope to read in May. I am really excited. I feel like I've been on a roll. I'm reading a lot and really enjoying mostly what I'm reading. So I'm hoping that continues into May. May is also going to be exciting because, like I said, I'm moving and there's just a lot going on. I am going to try to do some vlogs of the moving process, so if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribed and give this video a like if you liked it, and I'll see you next time.